Hey YouTube friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. On this channel, I like to share all things homeschool. So I like to do curriculum flip-throughs, I like to do lesson walkthroughs, I like to share with you my thoughts on the material that we are using and things of that nature. So for this video, I wanted to share how BJU Press sets up their Bible Truth Swan. I want to walk through a couple of lessons with you just to give you an idea of how the layout is and what you can expect from a lesson when you do one. I also want to share with you how we are doing and how far we've come along in this curriculum and if we are enjoying it. So if you're new, you may not know that I have a first and second grader and a pre-K 4-year-old, and all of them share in this Bible time. What I do is I put this in our morning basket, and I hope to make a video about that sometime soon. But I put this in our morning basket, and this is kind of like the morning routine. Although it is a curriculum that's like grade-based, it says first grade, I easily modify it to fit my family's needs. Here's a guide. So this was purchased through BJU Press. I purchased this, which is the 4th edition teacher's guide. It comes with a CD that I don't have with me right now. It's in my computer, a teacher's toolkit CD. So let's take a look inside the teacher's edition. So this is the contents page, and it just shows you there's 10 units. It also goes over the hymns. I'm glad that this incorporates it. So here they just explain the gospel, and this just goes over what's new for the 4th edition. Here it just tells you the instructional materials. You have the student work text and Bible, the tests, and then here I believe they have student material packet, and then just some extra things. I didn't get any of these things. They also have a distance learning program that you can do online. The children can be taught by a teacher through like video online. And I do think they do DVDs as well. I briefly looked into that, but I don't have too much information on that. Then here, the teacher's materials. There's a teacher toolkit that I just talked to you about a second ago, that CD-ROM that you put in your computer, and it has the teacher's visual packet, lesson demonstration, displays, maps, and charts, and then everything that's in the student materials packet. So that's activities, pages, half-unit reviews, and things of that nature. They also have here a music CD that's optional. I highly recommend getting the music CD. This is where all the hymns are in the CD. So they have about 10 hymns. We have it here. This is to be in, correlate with what we were doing in the material. So I purchased it, and so far we're loving it. So this has all the songs, all the hymns that we're going to be going through. And the back of the book also has all the lyrics to the hymns. And when you're doing the study, the curriculum, you're going to reference the hymns in each unit. So right now we're working on This Is My Father's Word. All right, here you go into the lesson features, and this just tells you how each of the lessons, the units are laid out. So it goes over doctrine, skills and application, any materials you're going to need, the hymn that you're going to be listening to and singing for that unit. Here, memory verse, and then the Bible account, and then it introduces anything new and background information, things of that nature. So here you go over the higher level thinking skills. There's listening questions, Bible account, application stories. Okay, for teaching tips here, it just gives you some tips for in the classroom or at home, for church, how to teach Bible, Christian living, presenting the gospel, and memorizing Bible verses, singing, praying, teaching Bible study skills, worldview shaping, grade levels and how to combine them, and then providing a positive growth environment. And here it just teaches you how you can present memory verses, how to memorize them, understand and apply. And then it does like a one-on-one version of that and how to do it if you only have, if you're only teaching one child. So that's nice. And then teaching a hymn, same thing, one-on-one or to a classroom. And then here you get into the units. So there is, for the first unit, you have God creates his world. So right now that's where we're at. We're in creation. So we have done unit 1A, all these lessons, and then unit 1B, we have one more lesson to do, and we'll finish up creation this week. So it just gives you the layout of the teacher edition page, the worksheet page, the lesson title, the scripture or the focus of that lesson or unit, and then any connections. They have math connections, they have science connection, and I'll show you that section when we get to it. So there's, like I said, 180 lessons. With the exception of this Christmas unit, so this one only has an A and B part. The rest of them have an A through D part. Well, I shouldn't say that. So look, Easter also has an A and B. Okay, then this is more of like the expanded form of Unit 1. It just breaks it down even more for you. Okay, so now you're into the lesson. Again, it goes over the unit 1A, the doctrines, the skills and application. Just put them in. I usually write them on our dry erase board and I keep them up for the week. So here we have the material. So for lesson 1, this is lesson 1 here. So it goes from page 4 to page 6, top of page 6. So I'm just going to go over how we did this lesson. So it tells you the materials. If you want to use a picture of a cake or a real cake, that's optional. Unit 1 bookmark. So this is if your children they have their own Bibles. There's a bookmark that you can use to put into their Bible so that they can just keep their place. We didn't do that. We didn't get the picture of the cake. Here it just tells you the materials that you need and where you can find them in the teacher's Toolkit CD. So here you have the hymn. So this just tells you to utilize the music to emphasize and teach biblical truths, which I really agree with. I feel like the hymn has been one of the major and most fun things for us when we're starting Bible. I'm not sure exactly if it tells you to do the hymn first, but we always start with the hymn and then we go into whatever's next. So I don't do it exactly the way it's laid out in the curriculum, and you'll see the rhythm that fits your family best. For us, once we did 2 lessons, I realized that the way it was laid out wasn't clicking for us, so that we just changed it up a little bit. But here there's the hymn, there's some questions for learning. This is more for like the teacher. And then this tells you what to say. Teach the first verse, music section in this book. Teacher's Toolkit tells you where it's located. Track 1. You may hear the song sung with music or on track 1 of the music CD, which may be purchased separately. And it tells you right here that you have to purchase it separately. And then you ask some questions after you listen to the hymn. What word in the hymn tells you who owns the world? What items did God create? That God created are named in the first verse of the hymn, and it just tells you rocks, trees, skies, and seas. So I did this section, how it says, I asked the questions, because when you're first doing a curriculum, you kind of have to get a feel for how it's laid out and what exactly they want you to do. And for me, I just kind of like to follow it at first until I get a rhythm of how I want to do it and how I want to present it to my kids. Without changing the nature of what they're saying. And each family is different. I like that they had this little hymn history, the background to the specific hymn. Then you have a memory verse here. So then the memory verse was John 1:3 into doing later. So there's a lot here. So Bible account. So you preview background information. I like that they had this. So I just read this. God is eternal, which means that God cannot be measured by time. It just goes on. We talked about what it means to create from nothing and what it means to create with what you already have. And we just talked about the differences between that. I liked how they had that analogy of God created from nothing, whereas we can only create with what we already have available to us. And then you introduce the Bible account. And this is like talking about what you need for the ingredients in a cake. So that's what the cake reference was for, and why you would need a picture of a cake. We didn't need that, but if you wanted to, you could just pull that up. I'm not sure if it has it on the teacher's toolkit because I didn't look, but it might be. So it just talks about what kind of ingredients you need, and it's just a nice, healthy discussion to talk about this. So it just kind of worked out this way. We talked about what kind of ingredients you need for cake and this and that. And then we read Genesis 1:1. They have like Psalms, more scripture here, but we didn't read all the scripture at one time. So I read some scripture, and then throughout the day I'd read again scripture when we're doing Bible at bedtime. And so you can kind of incorporate all the scripture that they mention. If you do it that way. It might make the lesson super long if you try to do it all at once. And my kids would just not sit down and listen for that long. So you have to just gauge their attention span at the moment. All right, so again, God just spoke. It gives you here in the beginning, there was God. And it just goes on. Gives you something to read to the children. So then it asks some more. The questions I found were pretty redundant. Like it keeps asking the same question, but in a different way. So I had to skip quite a bit of the questions because I would already ask it. Or I already worded it the way they said the first time, and so I didn't want to reword it again. So you'll just find that you'll be skipping some things, which is okay. There's so much information here. So it just asks some questions like, what ingredients did God use to create the world? Is it possible for people to make something out of nothing? Why? How could God make the world if he had nothing to use? Just some critical thinking skills there. And then here, work text, page 1. So this is when they're going to go and do their workbook page. And so this is the workbook page. It's really, really simple. There's 5 questions, yes or no questions, and then some coloring. That's for lesson 1. Lesson 2, so now we're going into, we're still learning John 1:3 as our memory verse. We're still doing the same hymn. We're talking about creation day 1, light day and night, and then it's just going through everything that way. And lesson 2 is here. Fine. So there's not much writing. So if your child doesn't like too much writing here, I think it's fine. There's coloring and drawing some pictures. And so on and so forth. So I will show you just the workbook pages. So that's lesson 1, lesson 2, and then lesson 3 looks like this. So we're on day 2 of creation, and then day 3 of creation. I'm not sure how we skipped that one, but that's going to go back so we can finish that. So this is lesson 6, lesson 7, 8, 9, oh, 8, sorry, 9, and this is still lesson 9. So lesson 9 had 2 sides. So we have one more lesson to do, which is lesson 10, and lesson 10 will have us finishing up creation. So throughout this whole unit, Let's see. So we just did lesson 9 today. Oh, what I wanted to show you is these cool sections that they have. They have like these action rhyme sections where you do, you read a poem and then the children do hand gestures to go along with the poem, which is really cute and fun. It's very active for the kids, especially the kids, my kids, the age group. It's really something right up their alley, so it's fun to do stuff like that. They have the creation timeline here as well. Just trying to see some other things that they did. They have some connections where you can do like a scientific connection, like here, discover the colors of sunlight and use a flashlight and things to demonstrate light. So there is a bunch of other things you can do as well, and you can decide if you want to do the activities or not. And so there's a math connection here. This is like calendar work, which we already do, so I didn't do like additional, but it just basically talks about there's 7 days in a week, and it talked about the Sabbath day and how God rested on the 7th day, and that's what this is. So lesson 10, which we're going to end this week of creation, it has us doing a mural for Unit 1A, finger paint, or mural. So there's the materials we're going to need for that. I'm not sure how we're going to do this just yet, but that would be lesson 10, and then there's a Unit 1A, 1B review. And here for the review, there's reproducible copies in the Teacher's Toolkit CD if you want to use that for a review. And then we come back next week. We'll start Unit 1C. So overall, I've really liked it. Maybe you could do this in 2 days. Maybe you don't have to do a lesson in 1 day. I like that we can do a lesson a day, and I just take out what I don't feel like we need to do any more of. If they get creation, they get who God is, they get God created all things. And so if I felt like they needed a little more reinforcement there, I would keep going, but that might be true for later in the curriculum. But for this part, since we're pretty good with creation, I think we have a good handle on it. But overall, it's been really, really fun, and I'm looking forward to continuing with it. And I will let you know how we do as the year goes on. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the